Oh, it worked. Boom.
No, I turned my camera on.
No, because because when I set it up, I have my screen on the left, and I have to crop the screen for the Discord because it's showing mine and the other
Yeah.
person. But then when you pop in or somebody else pops in, it boots the person and then shows me, but then not you. And then as soon as you turn your camera on, that solved that problem. So I didn't know that.
Yeah, I have to go to the room screen and then turn on the camera. So
It works. Hey, who's this? I feel the pain. I'm just saying personally, I'm careful about what the stuff is. Okay, before we get into it, I just want to let you guys know that due to some, I guess, suggestions and interest from people, uh, it will be like a Warcraft podcast where we bring people on and we talk about the game and the people in the game and who they're about and whatever. So right now this is like a demo, basically a live demo with Williams, and here we go. It's a perfect segue into complaining. But no, that's what it's not for. But it's just a test run. What episodes in? No, it's one person at a time. I can't let you in. I don't even have the physical setup. If I let you in, it would just completely destroy my screen. And then Kadark's just going to go on a rant about how Undead's not, you know.
you hear what he's saying? He's saying your face would destroy the screen, Kadark.
But no, the whole point would be to do interviews and say, ask where everybody's from, how they get into Warcraft, the stories behind Warcraft, who bought their first game, and where are they now? Why are they still playing? And then get into pet
Do you want me to
peeves.
say those things, or you just want to jump in a conversation about
Well, I'll let you want it. You want to do? You want to do it?
MMR?
All right. Well, let's
Sure.
we'll do a real episode with you one day. But let's say what got you into Warcraft, and why are you still playing today?
All right, great question. So I started playing Warcraft 2 in junior high, I think. And it was a game that me and my friends could go to the local college to their computer lab and we could play it together. So, we're doing like mage bombs and stuff like that and playing like the infinite resource maps and all that kind of shit. So eventually StarCraft comes out. A bunch of us jump into StarCraft. You start getting online play, which is, for an RTS, it was pretty cutting edge, even though we're all on like 250 ms. So that was a lot of fun. And so I was really anticipating Warcraft 3. Yes, I was in college when Warcraft 3 came out. But I pre-bought it. Like I was like excited and ready to go. I just got my own personal computer in college. So I got the game early, and I think what drew me to it, one, I really like RTS, but I loved the hero dynamic, which I think is what draws a lot of people to it, right? So it's a pretty unique setup in terms of how the game unfolds, and it's not just like Age of Empires or some of the other RTSs, even StarCraft, where you're just building units and armies and procuring resources, etc. So I really like that aspect. And then I played online. I loved the BattleNet scene. Had some friends that I met and got to play with and really enjoyed that. So I played, God, probably until like 2008 or 9, like pretty casually. And then I just stopped playing altogether. I didn't play for like 8 years.
Sounds about
And
right.
then yeah, so what drew me back was I just started watching like some YouTube videos of games and kind of remembered why I liked the game so much. And, I missed playing. It was fun. And I was going through a divorce. So, it was kind of something to do. And so, yeah, I picked it back up and then kind of same things. You play online, you meet cool people. Streaming had started to become popular. So I was an early, I was watching Grubby and Todd and a bunch of the other guys that had been streaming for years and years. Yeah, and just kind of got back into it. So that's kind of my Warcraft story.
I remember playing StarCraft 1 and Diablo 2, and I dabbled Diablo 1. A friend of mine had it, but Diablo 2 in high school and StarCraft 1, and that was the big thing. Or like everybody got to get this game, and we had this one friend of ours who was huge. He was really good at the time compared to everybody we knew, and he was playing online, and he kind of got us in the swing of things. And I think the love of the Blizzard games, the company and the games, was what
I
said
agree with that.
let's go play Warcraft 3, because they had, like, I didn't play much of Warcraft 2. I just I tried it and never bought it, but I had Warcraft 1, I had Diablo 2. I probably played Diablo 2 more than anything else. And we were playing all
Yeah,
the consoles for NHL and all the NHL games and hockey games. But I think it was that. I think it was Blizzard's reputation of like working on a game so hard that we loved everything else they
yeah,
did, that we wanted Warcraft 3. And
totally agree.
we got Warcraft 3, and we're just like blown away how amazing graphics were, and the story. Like the
Yeah,
campaign was good, the story's really great, and you're like, this is amazing. And then Brain and Chaos came out, and I was actually talking to Hyperreal about that, and I was like, Reign of Chaos. I was really good at Reign of Chaos, so much so that I probably was a lot better then than I am now. Fast forward to this many years, and then
yeah,
Frozen Throne came out, and like I was telling him, like I remember playing Grubby on on ladder in games, or I don't know, FFA or whatever it was, and some of the good players, and not that I beat them or anything, but and then kind of did the same thing you did, like disappear and then get back into it. Well, I got back into it because I was looking for some salvation for my concussion, and instead of like smashing my head against the wall and crying, I watched Warcraft, and then watched back to Warcraft, and then found you guys, and had Baron make fun of me because I didn't know there was a good play, different skill levels for MMR. I didn't know that existed. I was like, what's with these guys not
yeah.
microing their units and stuff, right? So
It's funny to me because like two things you said like really resonated with me, and I don't know if that's the same with a lot of other players out there, but one was Blizzard. So I've been playing Blizzard games since like mid to late 90s and was excited by their titles. Even the ones I didn't play, I had friends that played Diablo and stuff like that. So that was definitely a draw. And then it's probably going too far to call it therapy, but there is an aspect of therapy to having a game to play and a community to it's not just it's not like playing like online poker or chess or something where there's no interaction. Like there's interaction, right? It's not always good interaction, but there's interaction. So you get a little bit of a community, and I think even more so with Twitch. I think Twitch and other streaming platforms help bring a lot of people together. But whether you're going through a concussion or for me, not only did I go through a divorce, I lost my job, and
mm,
so I was in the dumps. And then what could I do that I enjoyed? Well, I could play Warcraft 3, and I could watch streams and enjoy, and I could laugh, and I could challenge myself, and so there's an aspect of therapy to it too. I think that it's still a game. I'm not saying like people should screw your therapist, go play Warcraft. And it can definitely be tilting. Like there's definitely times where my blood pressure is higher when I quit than when I started. But
yeah.
in general, I would say there is a draw to that. So yeah, no, similar story. Uh, to transition to wait at the same time, I'm trying to read your chat too, by the way.
He's talking about Legic's talking about you going through a divorce and losing your job at the same time.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no, it was bad. It was really bad, and I did lose half everything. It cost me like $120,000 to get through that divorce,
it's
so
tough, man.
it wasn't pretty. But in the past, life's good now. Actually, I'm about to buy a very nice car, so
Hey,
things
you
things
settled
change.
that whole thing with the car
No,
dealership?
no,
No.
No, my court date's in 9 days, but in the meantime, I gotta buy something. So I'm
Yeah.
looking at it's a it's a Jaguar. I'm really excited about getting. So anyway,
Hey.
so yeah, I think to transition the conversation a little bit, with the balance discussion, I think most of us that play this game are competitive. Not everybody, but most of us are competitive. We want to win. That's why sometimes tempers flare in game. We play to win, and winning is fun. That's what's fun to me is winning. That's why, you know, if you didn't want to win, you probably wouldn't play the game, especially solo. So when you want to win, and then you feel like there's something that's uh, unfair or is tilted in favor of your opponent, it's frustrating, and you want to voice that frustration. I type a lot of what I type about balance and about night elf and stuff with a smirk on my face. To be fair, um, I do think they're, especially in my MMR range. I'm like right around 1600, 1550, right around there right now. Like in my MMR range, I think it's big. One of the things I was bringing up was how the MMR system works and how what can happen is let's use undead and night elf as an example, because I do think, especially in certain MMR ranges, undead has an advantage over night elf. So let's say both two players of equal skill, all other things equal except they play different races. They meet at 1500 MMR. Because undead has an advantage over night elf, undead wins. They go up in MMR. The night elf player loses. The night elf player goes down in MMR. So now what happens? So the player that goes up in MMR is going to face players in general that are a higher MMR level. And if it's an elf player, at some point they're going to hit a ceiling, but it's going to be a lot higher than their own skill level. Now, if it's other races, for undead, let's say, I don't know what their lowest winning percentage is, but my guess is it's human, like in this range, right? So they're going to face a human player, and then my point is eventually those things are going to even out a little bit depending on how many times, how the matchup works, percentage of players under each race, et cetera, et cetera. So eventually things regress back toward the mean, right? So it does, as long as the game isn't like, orc is far and away the best race and it's better than all the other races. So an 1800 orc is really a 1500 player with all other races, which we know that's not the case. That's why I said it, because it's ridiculous. Then there's going to be some sort of leveling, right? Depending on the matchup and then depending on the race and the play. Um, and in general, I will say I think balance is in as good a place as it's been in a really long time. That's hard for me to say because I get really pissed off when I play night elf players.
Yeah. I agree.
But I do think, and this has come up in our FFA games, for example, like one of the advantages of playing orc in FFA is that the heroes scale so well, especially with big armies and with the impact of auras, and AoE spells and stuff like that. And so orc high level heroes are probably the best heroes in the game. The game isn't meant for 100 food armies and levels, 8, 9, 10 heroes. It's not designed for that. So, or in 2v2, there's aspects of 2v2 that are very different from solo. Or if you're operating at 120 to 150, APM, and you compare the gameplay to a 2000 plus MMR player that's at 300 APM and operating at a totally different level, it's a different game. Like the balance changes because you can compensate for disadvantages that your race has. You can do things that lower MMR players can't do. So then the challenge becomes, if I'm making decisions for the entire game, FFA, 4v4, 2v2, solo, then any changes I make could have some drastic influence on one of those fields. So then which ones of those matchups becomes the most important? Who do we all tune in to see? Do we tune in to see 2v2 games? Do we tune in to see Bronze League? Sometimes, and sometimes 2v2 games, but we all tune in to see the top tier players play. So that becomes the most important aspect of balance. And I think if you look at the top tier of play right now, I think every race has a chance. I really do. I honestly think that the best orc can beat one of the best players from every other race without his race dragging him down. I really believe that. So if you tweak Night Elf and you make Demon Hunter less tanky, or you make mana burn, you know, less effective, or if you take, an Archmage or a Farseer and give them more HP because they are low, very low HP heroes, you risk tilting the balance at a very high level in a way that honestly it wouldn't be fair. These guys are doing it for a living, and there's only a couple dozen guys that do that, but it's a hard game to play. It's a hard, and by the game I mean like the balancing. It's really hard. It's really hard, and honestly, I commend the crew that makes those decisions. I'm glad they do it gradually. I'm really excited about this potential 2.0 patch and what it might bring. Um, but anyway, those are my big picture thoughts on balance. In general, I think the game's actually in a pretty good place. I think it'd be really hard to balance things at like where you and I play MMR wise that wouldn't negatively impact really competitive Warcraft, or even like FFA, or even like 4v4 in a way that would be really negative. So it would be hard. Would I nerf Night Elf so I would have a more even playing field against, as a human player? Hell yeah, I would, because I want to win. And it's really frustrating. In certain games, it's really frustrating if like I'm doing things better and I'm losing anyway. That's really frustrating. But you know what else I could do? I could also grind for 20 or 30 hours and just overcome it with better skill, and I don't. So,
Well, that's being older and having real life responsibilities, right? Like we can't. There's some people
yeah.
who can. Like would I be able to play 8 hours a day of Warcraft physically, mentally? I wouldn't. If I had the opportunity to, I probably still wouldn't want to. And having spoken to a couple guys, uh, I like if I was streaming 8 hours a day, I could not play Warcraft all day, even though I love the game and I love learning about it. I don't even think my ceiling would get that high. I was actually having this conversation with a couple of guys yesterday in Discord, and I think some of us come out of the gate like 1500, and we just after a couple games, and some of us drop all the way down to 500 MMR, and then have to climb all the way our way back up to and put in more time and effort. And some guys stay at the same MMR. Like you said, it's a very complex game. But having said that, we have Mr. Slayday in the house. What's up, you dirty dogs? We're demoing our. This is like a demo episode of Call to Arms, the Warcraft podcast that we've been wanting to do, and I got to throw this out there because there's a speaking of dirty dog. That's not a dirty dog. That's a cutie. He's a
He's
Gilbert.
he's pretty ugly, but
No, he's not ugly. I have a
he's
question
having,
for you, Williams, and the chat. Given Warcraft's success, Blizzard's success as a company, going all the way back 20 years ago, fast forwarding to COVID, then Reforged coming out, and just like trying to revitalize the scene with this remaster, and then the fail, and just Blizzard completely ignoring the game, the ladder scene updates, and all this stuff. Do you think people would be still playing Warcraft 3 to the degree to which they're playing now, if not for Back to Warcraft and W3C existing?
absolutely not.
I th-
I'll just say it.
yeah, I think without Back to Warcraft, Neo and the boys, Warcraft community is like inexistent. And I think Torch. I was just gonna touch on that. I think maybe a guy like Grubby, he does his own thing and people go watch him. But maybe Grubby gets off Warcraft 3 even faster because it took him. He only got off of it a couple of years ago, really, or recently, and started becoming a variety streamer. And he'd probably have to switch games faster because there'd be no real interest. There'd be nobody keeping the game alive because Blizzard really uh, just kind of let everything go to heck after. Like I think once you get corporate and you get on the stock market and you get bought over by bigger conglomerates and stuff, you kind of lose sight of what your goal is. And when it was like a company for gamers and consumers. It's about the gamer and the consumer. We're going to do this well. But now it's about making money. And now AAA titles cost millions of dollars to make. Like you can see all recently, like Sony's had a bunch of games go down the drain and put millions into it. And, when you design a game, maybe graphics are not really important, but the mechanics of it are really important. There's so many games on Steam that are like 2D with one person who made them or two people or just like a handful
Yeah.
of guys, and they're so successful. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything to do with the graphics. Just like, is it a good gameplay? Is there a good community? And I think today, especially today, community and um, that kind of networking with social media and all the technology we have is so much more important than anything else. So if you made a Warcraft 4 a Warcraft 4 game tomorrow, and you're Blizzard, you got to make sure your freaking ladder is amazing. You got to make sure you have lobbies, clans, accessibility, like in depth, get everybody to stay on your one platform. Like, and people are like, hey, why would you do that? We just have Discord, and then everybody can use Discord, and that's another thing that comes up. Companies are like, well, this is already done, so we can use this and we can use this. But um, going off on that tangent, I brought it up because we were talking about it last night, and I don't think Warcraft is where it's at now without those guys, without the players, and obviously the input comes from a lot of the guys who have a lot of skill. There's a lot of them that transitioned into Stormgate, which they were kind of hoping for something good, or there's a couple of other RTS games that came out that are interesting, and Battle Ace is a little bit different and those kind of things. But like everyone keeps coming back to Warcraft 3. So you leave, you come back, you leave, you come back, you leave, you come back, and people can't get enough of it. Unless you're a StarCraft player who just, I think we got an influx of Brood War players for this year, and so there's a lot of new players like GNL after Grubby did that casting with Tyler and all those League of Legend players, like everybody out of the woodworks wanted to play Warcraft, and then GNL, I think they hit like 228 players this season, and there's a lot of new guys coming out or old players returning, and it's like you said, it's like therapy, and then you get this great community, and you're like, man, real life's hard. Real life's freaking damn hard. Like sometimes you just need to relax, and have a cup of
Yeah, I
coffee.
think I think there are a handful of streamers that have gone a long way in sustaining the game. I definitely put Grubby at the top of that list. I think back to Warcraft from a culture standpoint, from like promoting tournaments, hosting Raw Land, streaming every day, and streaming Warcraft. Nobody's done more. Those guys, Remo and Neo, and I love Remo. I'll even bump Neo up a little bit further. His passion is so infectious, and it bleeds over into the work that he does, and Remo's does too. But I just really feel like Raw Land was Neo's baby, and they've done such a good job with that event. But I'll even stretch it further. I mean, like right now, I can see there's a StarCraft 2 professional right now streaming Warcraft 3 Vibe,
Yes,
and
yes.
there are players out there that have kind of come back to the game as it's gotten a decent amount of exposure that I think really help the scene. And I think there's a clear divide too between the Western English speaking world too, and where that draw is, because in Eastern Asia it's way bigger and there's a way bigger player base. And I do think things like NetEase or whatever the equivalent is going to be, I don't know what it's going to be called. It may be called NetEase, I'm not sure. That's going to do a lot to sustain the game because it's going to bring a lot of players in. And most, I think the only Western, I'm going to put Western air quotes because it's that's kind of relative, but the only people that are going to play on NetEase are going to be your hyper competitive players. That's the way it used to be anyway. You would see like the top tier players would go over to NetEase because that's where the best games were. But other than that, that is really an East Asian thing. And so like things like that, I think go a long way. Some of that, I think we're getting a softened approach since the failure of Reforged by Blizzard and since their acquisition by Microsoft, because Microsoft, I know they're big in corporate. I know they have, stocks, holders to worry about and everything, but their classic games have never been a money maker. They're not doing them for making money. It's a cultural thing. It's sustaining something that they believe in that doesn't in the big picture is not a huge investment for them. It's a big investment to us. For players to see 2.0 coming out is huge. But for them as a company, that's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket. So like I do think it's going to help to have that. And I do think that they're investing more in the last 4 or 5 years than they did the previous 12 to 14 years. I may be a little long on that 12 to 14, but anyway, they're investing more in the last few years than they have in a long ass time. So I mean, there's some good things that are going on, I think, in the scene that help sustain it. But yeah, I 100% agree with the comment on Grubby, on Back to Warcraft, even like your slightly smaller streamers. You want to know somebody who's passionate, who does a lot for the scene in Brazil? Forks.
Oh yeah.
That
Oh
guy,
yeah.
that guy bleeds Warcraft. I love that guy. He is a great dude, and he's super passionate. And it's guys like that. And the Brazilian scene is pretty robust, honestly. For South American scene is pretty good, and I think we see more of that in North America just because our time zones align a little bit. But guys like Forex, man, they've gone so far in keeping the scene alive and having team hate and the Brazilian guys that play and everything. There's a handful of guys. Yeah, I'll give Baron props, man. Baron's done a lot with GNL, and I know he stopped playing as much recently, but he's super active on the Discord channels. Obviously you've got smaller streamers as well that just like I stream for fun. I haven't streamed as much the last few months, but the guys that show up and I'll have 10 or 15 guys consistently in there. It's a good community, but it's fun and it helps sustain the scene when you have that. If we were just playing this shit I'm literally in my office right now. If we were just playing this shit in our office and we weren't watching anybody and we didn't have chat and we didn't have fun discussions and we didn't have those things, would we really still playing this game? Still be playing this game 22 years later?
Well,
I mean, come on.
I find
No, no.
as Torch makes a good point is that probably the average player age of Warcraft 3 is higher than most games from the esports perspective, and I would say I would agree because it's similar to everything that's happened in pulp culture and movies and music, where a lot of old bands came back and start releasing new music, or old singers are starting to team up with their bands again, or they're revitalizing, like Ghostbusters or Legos or Super Mario was big after the movie came out, and like all the stuff that was old, it's new again, and they just kind of rehash it. It's like, okay, let's do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles all the time, and you kind of like all the I say us like that 40, even the 50, because I'll get back, I'll get into the other community I'm in that I just jumped into this year, but it's like that nostalgia vintage feel. It's like, oh, I want life's hard, things are expensive, there's too much going on, I kind of want to do what I used to do but as an adult now, so let's go play some games, let's go get a board game, let's go get Warcraft, let's go do this kind of stuff. And it's kind of given us a social life, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to anybody. It's like when you get older, you kind of get rid of people that are not good for you in your life, and you tend to
Yeah.
replace them with either your family or your spouse or who your significant other or your career, or you make new friends. And some of us, we used to have thousands of friends, hundreds, and then we just kind of like they would dwindle down, and then it's like, okay, I'm 40, I'm tired, I want to play Warcraft, I want to relax, but I still want to kind of talk to people that have interest in what I'm interested in, but there's nobody who's interested in what I'm interested in anymore outside from the guys who are online, like yourself and guys in the community. So who am I going to talk to about Warcraft? So like you said, if it didn't exist, we wouldn't be playing. So the fact of the matter is, it's the community that's keeping the game together, and it's the community that makes it more engaging. Hence, back to Warcraft, GNL, guys like Baron, Wantu, Neo, and just everybody behind the scenes, because there's actually a lot more guys behind the scenes who, the captains,
The W3 champions team,
like
those guys, holy cow.
so it's it's so much more than the game, and I don't think anybody would understand if it disappeared tomorrow how important it is to a lot of people. You go to work the next day, Warcraft 3 blew up, it's gone, and there are a lot of people would be sad and kind of it'd be kind of like a void in your life. Like what would you be playing? What would you be complaining about? What would replace that? Like, and I'm not saying go out and get some fresh air and tell the kids to go out and get fresh air. This it's not that. Like it's a little bit more than that. So yeah, they'll be playing Warcraft too. Imagine being a Mac user. Well, Mac users or something else. I wanted to mention that I joined an NHL 94 community this year. I say this year. We're October now, so before the summer, I joined, and then nothing really happened, and I practiced some games. They have a really large community, very similar to Warcraft 3. However, NHL 94 was played on the Super Nintendo, not on the PC, so there was never really any online network ladder play. And then these guys had a bunch of tournaments in different cities in the States and Canada, and then they set up something online and NHL94online.com, and they made the game online and they turned it into a freaking ladder adventure, and they have a website with stats and whatever, and these guys are 40 to 45, they're 50 and they're still playing, and the community is so big and the game's alive and the passion for it's alive because these communities, the guys that put in work, they'll drive 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours to set up a tournament with CRT monitors, bring Super Nintendos. They have so many people, and it's like when I found out what these guys did and how they've been doing for the last, you know, I don't know, 15, 10 years, 20 years, how long they've been doing it. It's like it's
So,
exactly what the
so what
Warcraft
do
3
you
community
call
is kind of doing, you know, like
if we have Raw Land? What do NHL '94 players have? What do you call it?
oh, they would have a King of 94 tournament. They just had it in
King in
Toronto.
'94.
Yeah.
I like our name way better. Raw Land's way better. Just throwing that out there.
But NHL 94 has some exploits though. No, there's a lot of stuff with the code, and actually there's a guy that Len the Legend does a podcast about it and interviews guys in the game. Actually, he just interviewed this guy who's in
All right.
China about RetroArch, which is I don't know if anybody knows RetroArch, but an AI that like they're trying to make the gameplay in a system or in a box, let's say in a box, where the AI can be adaptive like a player and not just like a computer AI. So I was listening to that and I was like, imagine if they played that to Warcraft, that would be insane. It's like, who do you want to play to? You want to play Happy? You want to play Disengage? You want to play Moon? Like, so I mean that's a lot of work and far fetched, and I don't think anybody would do it. But there's a lot of cool stuff going on there with Vintage.
No, that's pretty cool stuff. Well, hey, I tell you what, it's almost a quarter after midnight where I am, and I'm old, as Penguin says. I should probably be in an assisted living facility. So I do have to go to work tomorrow. So I'm gonna let you go. But thanks for bringing me on and for a good chat. I appreciate the mini platform to let me rant.
Hey, well, I appreciate
So
you coming on and demoing this with me. It seems that I
yeah,
kind
dude.
of got an idea of how it's going to work and the camera and stuff. So I'm just going to stay on a little bit more, but I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. I'll be around tomorrow night, at least probably after 9 or 9:30. So
I'll be there.
all right. See you. Have a good night.
Cheers. You have a good one.